Just start a minute early, but we'll go ahead and call the informal meeting of the City Commission to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Houston? Here. Mrs. Tackett? Here. Mr. Rue?
Here. We'll go ahead and turn over to Tom Franzen.
Good evening, Commissioners. So we have a couple of items here for the work session presentation by Sheltered Inc., followed up by a presentation on, or an update on our zoning code updates. But we'll start first with introductions for Sheltered Inc. Tonight, Charlie Bush, board member of Sheltered Inc., a longtime board member, yeah. And the executive director, Elena Bradley, going to give us an update of Sheltered Inc., a little bit about them, and also an update on the homelessness issues here facing the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Charlie.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank the City Commission for giving us the opportunity to come and give this presentation. Thank you very much. So I'll go ahead and get started. Shelter has provided services for the homeless since 1990, 34 years, and has done an outstanding job of being a working partner with the city and the county during this time. We have involved over 32 churches for volunteers and coordinators of these churches, helping with fundraisers and help provide meals at the shelter. Countless hours of dedication to providing support for the less fortunate in our community, the homeless. IHN's typical capacity for emergency shelter services is 70 individuals at any given time. Long-lasting economic impact exaggerated and made worse by scarce affordable housing options and created an unimagined need for emergency shelter. The Springfield City Commission passed an emergency resolution number 6095 citing homelessness a public crisis on October the 6th, 2020, outlining specific steps to address the emergency, pledging $3 million during the pandemic and over the next 5 years. In an effort to immediately address the emergency homeless crisis, Shelter, as the emergency homeless shelter provider, was asked to apply for funding to help support non-congregate sheltering to cover costs associated with hotels, basic needs, meals, transportation, and staffing. At one time, Shelter was housing homeless individuals in 5 hotels throughout the city, and leased 100 rooms at one of the hotels over a 2-year period. Shelter Inc., Clark County Community Development, and Springfield Community Development work to identify, project, and estimate costs associated with immediate and intermediate long-term actions to implement to fully address the soaring homelessness crisis. The Clark County Development Department, Health Department, Commissioners, City of Springfield Commissioners, Community Development Department, Manager's Office, and Commissioners were all part of this summary submitted. The initial summary memo came directly from the City of Springfield Community Development Department with all local partners listed and carbon copied. The COVID-19 pandemic created many barriers related to homelessness within our community. Prior to COVID-19, the average waiting list for safe, affordable housing ranged from 6 months to a year within our community. Currently, the average waiting list can be up to 2-year waiting list for safe and affordable housing. The City of Springfield and Clark County Commissioners passed an emergency resolution number in December 2021, number 6033, declaring a public health emergency homeless crisis, outlining steps to address the crisis. One step being developing a homeless housing task force, funded jointly by the city and the county. Springfield-Clark County continued experiencing a need for increased outreach services due to the number of individuals on the emergency homeless shelter waiting list reported living in uninhabitable situations, including encampments within the city, abandoned houses, campsites, etc. Shelter used general funds and CV funds to support transitioning the families, with the understanding Shelter would be entering into a new operational agreement pledged by the City of Springfield to offset the cost when the Executive Inn and Villager came online. Sheltered served nearly 5,000, actually, the actual number is 4,709 individuals in emergency shelter between 2020, okay. Immediate need. Sheltered applied for funding from the state ODOD, Ohio Department of Development, to renovate both emergency shelters in March of 2021. The project was to prepare the shelters for the next phase and enable IHN to reopen congregate shelters while meeting COVID compliance. Sheltered access funding from Ohio Department of Development and the City of Springfield to complete the emergency shelters. Sheltered completed renovations and reopened both emergency shelters in 2023. Sheltered applied for annual funding to United Way to operate emergency shelters and was defunded. United Way stating, due to the infusion of funding of local government. Long term, the City of Springfield pledged to a motel plan to be converted to non-congregate emergency shelter. At the time of the city acquiring the facility, individuals were being housed and provided non-congregate shelter at the facility as part of the community plan to address the crisis. The City of Springfield purchased the Villager Inn as part of the plan to address the long-term goals and redevelop the site to transform it into a multi-purpose supportive serve housing complex. Immediately to use the house homeless individuals and families to provide emergency shelter. Transition to permanent housing, respite care, and supportive services working with various partners. Due to water main break, fire, and damages, the city demolished the property. Shelter worked in partnership with the City of Springfield and carried on its agreement to continue to provide emergency shelter and care for individuals to ensure those that were unhoused immediate needs were met. City of Springfield asked Shelter to develop a transition plan. The City of Springfield provided Shelter drafted operating budgets, leases, and program agreements.
Sheltered was told that if the organization continued to carry forward and provide services, the new budget, I'm not on. Sorry.
So can I, since we switched speakers, if I could just, I'm a little confused because it was our understanding that this would be a session to learn about what Sheltered Inc. does for the community. What I'm hearing is presenting a case pertaining to maybe some of the things that have been in the paper, some of the funding in question. So I'm concerned because we're not using this time in the way it was meant to be. The purpose of this meeting is to learn what Shelter does for the community and its value to the community, which it has, which we believe it has. And so those are items that I would have liked to have heard. Elena, I know you have some facts you probably want to share as well, but I just would like to state publicly that the way you're using this work session was not its intent. At this point, I'd like you to go ahead and read what you have in front of you.
And I would like to say also that I think that what I have read is pertinent to what Sheltered Inc. does.
Some of it is very pertinent. Elena, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Rue. If we went back to the beginning where Mr. Bush had opened up, when we had shared with the city and asked for the work session, we did share that we were going to share who we are, who we serve, and go back to the action plan that the city and county had worked with Sheltered Inc. on back and did 2 resolutions in 2020. And so all the work that we've shared with you today is part of that resolution and that summary that was sent to the state of Ohio. So that is showing all the work and the individuals that were served and the services that they received.
Okay.
Thank you. So Sheltered was notified, Sheltered was notified and put in a position to operate the executive inn when the city acquired it without a formal agreement or lease. Sheltered was notified 2 days prior to the closing. Sheltered had to fully staff a 24-hour operation, left with a list of safety issues and individuals living on site, and handed keys to operate the facility on the day of the closing. Sheltered received an email from the City of Springfield of issues their maintenance department listed as part of their walkthrough. In February 23rd, Sheltered received an email from Job and Family Services Director Virginia Martinez that the Clark County Board of Commissioners was terminating the contract with Sheltered Inc. The Ohio Department of Job and Family Services monitored our local job and family services. Mrs. Martinez claimed the termination was due to alleged violations of provisions of the agreement regarding reimbursement of funds that the Job and Family Services approved. Sheltered received no prior notice to this termination, no monitoring, exit interview, or opportunity to respond, appeal outlined in their policies and procedures. Sheltered Inc. has disputed the debt claimed to be owed to Clark County, Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. Sheltered disagrees with the characterization of noncompliance found in its monitoring review. And further, the demand letter contains several misstatements of fact which underline some of the claimed amounts. Sheltered Inc. strongly disputes any and all allegations regarding its operations and implication that any funds were ever misallocated. In February 27th, few days after we received that notice, we received an email from the city manager of Springfield, Brian Heck, notifying Sheltered that recent events led the city of Springfield to further evaluate its relationship with Sheltered. The city reported they were committed to pay approved expenses. The city of Springfield acknowledged Sheltered had been operating at the location without a formal contract, and the city would reimburse expenses until the facility transitioned to another entity to manage. Sheltered was operating the Executive Inn at the time and had received approved to enter into a lease and operational agreement with the city of Springfield, the Executive Inn, to operate non-congregate shelter in the amount of a little over $1.3 million. Sheltered was waiting on the contract to be approved by the city of Springfield Commission. Sheltered Inc. had purchased insurance, started completing the onboarding and clean-out repairs of the Executive Inn position while housing homeless individuals and families on site at the Executive Inn. Sheltered was forced to get legal counsel involved to be reimbursed for the operating services at the Executive Inn, and was reimbursed and was advised by legal counsel to vacate the property and transition all the homeless individuals that were living at the property. Sheltered transitioned all clients from the Executive Inn and returned keys to the city of Springfield because the city refused to enter into that written agreement. Sheltered entered into agreement with OIC in Clark County to help keep the emergency shelters open and fill the funding operating gap in July of 2023 at a reimbursable cost per individual family we serve. This funding has kept the emergency shelters open in our community. The current agreement is scheduled to end in September 2024. Since that time, the city of Springfield monitored Sheltered Inc. and identified no deficiencies or misallocation of funding. The funding received from the city exceeded $1 million to provide non-congregate shelter operations. This prevented the city to deny Sheltered the opportunity to not deny Sheltered the opportunity to apply for emergency solution grant funds. City Commission approved Sheltered to receive funds in May of 24, and Sheltered is currently waiting to receive those reimbursable funds to date, waiting on a final approval and reimbursement. $56,000 of those funds are to support the emergency shelter operations in Springfield.
Thank you for bringing this information to us. At this time, I think that we've heard a lot of information. Some of it wasn't in the way that I thought we'd be talking about sheltering tonight. At this point, I think we've heard plenty. I'd like to let the commissioners, if they have any comments for the information you've shared, to go ahead and comment.
Excuse me, Dr. Estrup, were you finished, Elena?
No, I wasn't. I was almost finished.
Okay, can we allow her to finish, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry, now I lost where I was. Give me a brief moment. Sheltered is actively working with its funding partners to ensure the continued operation of its emergency shelters so that we can continue serving the greater Springfield's area homeless and needy populations. Neither the city or county have shared a plan on how to move forward and address the emergency homeless crisis and serve single individuals or families without children. The city and county developed a homeless housing task force in 2022. The task force presented recommendation to the city and county in November of 2023. The Direct Service Providers Committee, consisting of OIC, Springfield City Schools, Sheltered Inc., Homeful, St. Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army, Project Woman, and Nehemiah Foundation, responded to the recommendations outlined in the executive summary presented to the commission in February of 24. The direct service providers did not receive a response from the city or county commissioners or opportunity to meet to discuss to address the emergency homeless crisis within the community. The county recently increased a contract with Homeful from $350,000 to $750,000, an operator from Montgomery County, to operate the Executive Inn for a one-year term. The facility is currently operating 27 rooms. It has been shared in public meetings. The facility will not exceed 35 rooms to the condition of the building, initially purchased to operate 70-plus rooms by the city of Springfield. Part of the plan submitted to the state to operate for 3 to 5 years. Our community has seen an increase of over an estimated 15 to 17,000 plus in population in the last 4 years. Soaring rents, one of the highest eviction rates across the state of Ohio, tripled the number of children that are identified as homeless in our public school system, and have less capacity now to meet the demand of our community and unhoused neighbors prior to the pandemic. The plan led by the city of Springfield was to increase our capacity and meet the demands of our community. Sheltered Inc. stepped up, and we executed the commitments as outlined in that plan to address the emergency homeless crisis. We are asking the commission to revisit their position and prioritize the emergency homeless crisis and support Sheltered to ensure our unhoused neighbors' needs are met and the shelters are not forced to close, leaving individuals and families with nowhere to go. The only solution to live on the street, in cars, in encampments, or uninhabitable situations are forced to uproot themselves and their families to other communities. Leadership requires humility. Homelessness has devastating effects on human lives and severe health, safety, and social, economic, and environmental impacts on city and county neighborhoods. We just ask that you revisit the plan that this commission approved in 2020 and reprioritize the emergency homeless crisis in our community.
So this, again, this went in a way that was not intended through email or anything that you explained. However, a lot of what you said has been publicly written about in the newspaper. I see your hand. Give me a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. All I ask.
Thank you.
Ricky.
What I am saying is you are making it sound like, one, the city has no regard for the homeless population, and that may not have been your intent, but it is categorically untrue, number one. Number two, the amount of funding that we give you, we do. There may be some dispute, I think you have. We can't speak to some of it right now in specific, but it's a very, very minute amount you're talking about in comparison to the entire funding picture that we're responsible for. We are maybe, 1 to 10% tops of what you get, what you were to receive, if you were to receive the funds, in TANF funds. Am I right? Okay. So what I'm saying, before you had a lot of time to talk, what I'm saying is your concern and the funds came from the county to fund most of what you just said. We still resolve as a commission to care about homelessness. It was very unfortunate that we had the deepest freeze we've ever had, and pipes blew up, and what we intended to use to really help the homeless concern had to be torn down, but it was deemed unsafe, and it would have been wrong to put anybody there after it was deemed unsafe. So I really don't want to go back and forth. I think you had a generous opportunity to state your entire case, both of you, and what you did is state a case. We didn't really get to learn about what Shelter's doing today, just the concern that you have.
Well, we did share with you that how many individuals we've prevented in this community from accessing the emergency homeless system. We did provide the number of individuals that we did provide emergency shelter to, and our why we came here today is to share, because of the emergency action plan that the city commission declared 2 resolutions to address. And that was very specific and had very specific items and goals and objectives outlined in it. And so we just took you through that line item and asked that this commission revisit those 2 resolutions as well as that action plan that we as a community went to the state of Ohio, and they provided this community over $10 million to meet our immediate need, with the city and county following behind and leveraging dollars to address our intermediate and long-term needs to address our emergency housing crisis. And I just outlined what has been accomplished and what hasn't, and asked that you revisit it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Estrop?
It would seem to me your issue is with the county, not with the city. And I suspect that ultimately you're going to end up in court or behind closed doors to negotiate a settlement between Shelter Inc. and the county. Frankly, that's what needs to happen. Because until then, there's a great deal of finger pointing and confusion about, is this a county problem, a city problem, Shelter Inc. problem, when in fact, the initial act was won by the county against Shelter Inc. And I understand you're exploring the potential of litigation against the county, and I think that makes sense. And I suspect the county is looking at litigation against Shelter Inc. And I think that makes sense. So I would advise my fellow commissioners, until the issue is settled in court or negotiated a settlement behind closed doors, that I think we need to stay out of this. Now, we're going to continue to support the homeless in this community. That's one of our challenges. But I think the question of where we go from here is the most cogent one, and one I was hoping you would address tonight. But I don't know if we can answer that question until you have sat down and worked out whatever the issue is with the county, either in court or behind closed doors. Thank you.
Thank you.
The
I would just like to add, before we end this evening, not to misrepresent what Sheltered Inc. came to share with our community today. The termination of the contract with Clark County is a part of what transpired and placed Sheltered Inc. in this financial emergency crisis that is putting all those that need emergency shelter services at risk. Again, if you go back to what we shared initially this evening, the plan came from the city of Springfield. The resolutions were with the city of Springfield and both the county. And so in that plan, it is not only identifying PRC, Job and Family Service, TANF funds. Actually, those funds were not even part of the workbook. It was emergency coronavirus funds, home funds, ARPA dollars that the city of Springfield committed and pledged to serve the emergency homeless crisis. And that's what I'm here to speak to you about today. I pointed one point in regarding of what happened, what triggered the city of Springfield to respond because of the county's actions. Thank you.
I would like to make one statement also. And correct me if I'm wrong, Elena, but the city entered into an agreement. The agreement with the executive end also involved TANF dollars. And at that time, without us having any explanation or any rebuttal to those accusations from the county, they used that for the city, and the county used that to deny us the right to even be a part of the entering into the agreement with the executive end. Correct?
Oh,
So when TANF was involved, the city automatically said, well, you wouldn't let us even fill out a request for funding.
Mayor, if I could, just, we are going to be far beyond all of our public hearing
that,
timeline.
and I appreciate your concern.
Obviously, we're going to have opportunities to continue discussing, right? This wasn't
We would love to
a
have that
negotiation.
opportunity.
This wasn't the end of our discussions, and the commission's committed to finding solutions to meet the homeless crisis. So I think for concern of time, I would recommend we, in the work session, continue discussing with Sheltered Inc. as we
So
move
if
forward.
it's okay, I'd like the other commissioners who'd like to say something, and we're going to conclude our hearing.
Yeah, I just have a quick statement. I just want to thank you guys. It doesn't seem like enough for what you all have done for our community. Thank you just doesn't seem like enough. And although I'm coming in at the fourth quarter as a commissioner, I'm aware of your history and impact. I am hopeful resources and solutions come through to rectify this situation with the county, and that the folks who need our help the most, which reside in the city of Springfield, still receive local support. Thank you.
First off, thank you for everything you've done for the community over the past, I don't know how long you've been at Shelter. I want to say, was it 10 years? Longer?
14.
Yeah, thank you for everything that you've done. I do agree with Dr. Estrop, though. It seems to, in a major way, be an issue between the county and Sheltered Inc., primarily because the city doesn't administer TANF funds. So I'm eager to see how this plays out. And then I also will say I wish we had more time, because I was really looking forward to hearing more about what Sheltered Inc. does to help the community. So hopefully
We'll
we'll
have
get
to
more
schedule
time.
a different time in the future, for sure. I just, again, want to make sure it's heard that the city does care about the homeless. We are doing what we can to help the homeless. I said in the beginning of the meeting that we have value in Sheltered Inc. That I wasn't just saying that. That's a fact. There's a lot of red tape and things that are in between all of that, but we want to make sure it's done well and done right. I think you do too. I know you do. So I just, amidst all of the pleading in what you did there, we do care about homeless. I don't like it reported or said that the city is not doing anything about homelessness, and that's just not true. And I was a part of those resolutions, and we do care about it, and I voted yes on those, of course.
So I do have one last statement. I wanted to say that this decision wasn't made, in a flippant manner. We explored different ways that we can continue, at least from my perspective, and with my fellow commissioners as well, with Katie, and I could not see a sustainable way forward. And so I just wanted you guys to know that those conversations, it was not just like, okay, whatever, and then we're going to bring someone else in. That was not the case.
Sure.
I just am not seeing, I could not see a sustainable way moving forward with the city providing those funds. So that was a topic of conversation, and it was not ignored by us. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that, we were not attempting to end here, okay?
So thank you so much for being here. We have another work session, zoning code regulations updates.
Yep, I'll go ahead and introduce our next work session. Videhi Agwan and Cheyenne Shuttleworth's going to give us an update on the zoning code updates that we've been pursuing.
Evening, Commissioners.
You guys have 60 seconds.
So for those that, we've been updating code and regulations. This is something that many cities are looking at throughout the state and other areas. We're updating codes from back in the 90s, am I right? And earlier, right? So this is one of the reasons we have these work sessions, so you guys can give us updates. So go right ahead. Thank you.
This PowerPoint pulls up. Right. So currently, we are still at the public engagement and workshops phase of the code update, and we wanted to share the goals of this code update. These were shared in the first work session, but still wanted to share these to focus and channel discussions that would help in achieving these. So we really felt from everyday conversations at the front counters or emails and calls that the code needs to be updated to be user-friendly. If people cannot get to the information, and if they do, there are typos and inconsistencies in administering the same code. This does not fit well with the community's long-term goals. Adding into making it user-friendly, we also think adding in administrative processes, streamlining zoning approvals and decisions will ease the burden on boards and commissions. Also to reduce and remove outdated language and add in different land use definitions. And we really want to make sure and take our time to make people aware, get comments, and just hear people out on how zoning is affecting their daily lives, and if they wish to see something change. We also want to hear from community if the zoning code requirements are good as they are right now. While majority of the code update is proofreading and removing sections that are not in use, there is a scope to have some new uses and design requirements to be included in this update. So after months of analysis of code and going over some of the recent board requests and how they relate to the current code, the consultants ZoneCo LLC and staff came up with a few preliminary recommendations for the code. Some of them focus on residential and others on non-residential code sections. As far as engaging with community and getting comments, let's take an example of pocket parks. So what you as neighbors want to see happening in the pocket park use. Right now they are considered under community center, and the definition does not address non-built improvements made to a vacant lot. And the only built structure that may come with such a use would be a shed or a fence. So fencing and having a shed become accessory uses without principal use. Because some of these parks become reality through state, federal funding and collaborations between nonprofits and neighborhood leaders, the design and use elements may not comply with zoning laws. It is a need for the community and neighbors to come to some kind of consensus as to how these uses should be regulated, so it brings benefit to community without additional processes. Another recommendation as a result of recent examples of developments focuses on smaller lot sizes and questions about building new on vacant lots. The recommendation of minimizing lot sizes would provide relief and opportunity to general public to use their land without need of variances. The lot size of 5,000 is minimum and is not limiting. You can purchase a 10,000 square foot or half an acre of land and still build a single family. But you can also have a 5,000 square foot of residential lot and still build a single family. Some of these recommendations were discussed with neighborhood associations and handouts were provided along with questionnaires. The goal of having the handouts and questionnaires was to increase engagement and get neighbors to think about what recommendations seem favorable. As the end product, the zoning document will be applicable to their property and their neighbors as well. Being comfortable with these changes and to be on the same page is critical and essential for the update. While the stakeholders meeting focused on overall comments, we also engaged with neighborhood associations. A total of 40 to 45 neighbors from 3 of the neighborhood associations were engaged and made aware of workshops in June and July. We received a total of 34 physical responses so far on some topics and recommendations. There are at least 5 to 7 email responses on topics such as tiny homes, neighborhood character, and lot sizes. From initial discussions with neighbors, we found the topics that needed more feedback on, like chickens on parcels less than 3 acres or temporary food trucks on or near residential streets. These meetings also created an environment of where a dialogue can be had about what needs to change or kept as is. We also reached out to the neighborhood influencers group to further our efforts with public engagement. We also posted flyers at different business locations who were willing to advertise the workshops, and using all the information came up with a format for a workshop.
So based on the comments received, the consultants came up with a plan to engage public by discussing parts in the city organized into quadrants. So in June or last weekend, we engaged in discussions about the southwest and northwest quadrants. We also talked about having the consultants over in late July or early August to give a summary of all the 4 workshops to get an idea of what was discussed and what topics were talked about. We also made the city downtown a part of discussion for all the 4 workshops. The next 2 slides are to explain how the comments received from public will help in drafting the code, since those were the questions that came up in the public engagements. So what we are looking to capture is the need of community and response to some of the recent topics of discussions. These discussions are happening between neighbors, maybe among business owners and developers on what use should go where and is it feasible to have the use in the spaces available in the city. We want to get those comments and make them part of our code. And having a concept such as tiny homes seems gorgeous. Other cities are doing it, but to bring it to reality, it takes time, effort, and financing. And we really need to know from residents of the city if such development is welcome and what design features will it carry with itself to complement the surroundings. Another concept that has come forward is of pocket parks. It really does take an entire community together with partnerships, collaboration, and funding sources to make a project happen. What zoning would do is it acts as a regulatory tool to guide the development, and with an update like this, it can also channel development to proper corridors or neighborhoods where it is needed. So tiny homes is a popular or trending concept, but the long-term vision for our community would be making use of small size lots to be able to build new units or renovate existing and make use of them for housing. On the slides are a few examples that are existing. The next slide kind of explains the concept of overlays, and which is very difficult to understand. It's very technical, but when you see it, you know it. It is the feeling you get when you enter a certain part of the city, like historic districts or downtown. They have their own characteristics that define areas and that have land use regulations. But external building facade regulations on what the building should look like is what the overlays are made of. So what we need from the community is to say, well, we like the downtown and how it feels, and any future development should match the existing. So if there is a fencing or landscaping requirement that builds character, seems pleasant, we would like to see such character build up in the city for any kind of future developments. So we want community or residents to come out to these public meetings and say, yes, we want special requirements or overlays to stay. The underlying zoning districts, it could be residential or commercial, but it should look like downtown. That's what overlay achieves. The mix of uses brings the desired walkability, promotes community engagement, and brings in the density for downtown to thrive. An example of Rainbow Row in Bellefontaine on how it looked like before 2022 and how it looks like right now explains the overlay aspect. The building looks commercial and blends in well with surroundings, but it definitely creates a unique experience for pedestrians. And on top of those retail stores in the front are apartments. Springfield has its own successful townhomes in downtown, which is an excellent example of how an overlay, when combined with zoning district, provides the community with an excellent asset. And with that, we would like to conclude our presentation for today. We have 2 more workshops coming up in July 13 and 14. While these would focus on remaining quadrants, we would like to see people come forward with their comments on anything they find interesting in Springfield or they do not wish to see more of. Gas stations.
Gotcha.
So-
Car washes.
Car washes. Dollar stores.
So we have sent in flyers and information through email, and will certainly have information posted in libraries and any businesses that have spaces to put up flyers. The information will also be shared with neighborhood influencers groups, stakeholders, and neighborhood association. Thank you.
I just want to say I'm grateful how much effort you're making to get meetings going, to engage the public. We cannot be blamed that we did not try to get the entire community's input while we're going through this, so thank you. Other commissioners have comments? Dr. Estrop?
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
keep working at public engagement. I think it's hard for some in our community to understand the importance of the work that you're doing in terms of how it will shape the future of our community. And we need to get them involved and have their voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
there a motion to conclude the work session?
So moved.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Clerk call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. We have 2 hearings before we start our formal meeting. Okay. The public hearing scheduled for 6:50 is called to order. Clerk call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett? Here. Mrs. Houston? Here. Mr. Rue?
Here. Has proper legal notice been given of this hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for .90 acre located at 1103 Warder Street from RS8 Medium Density Single Family Residence District to M1 General Manufacturing District was published in the Springfield News Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached hereto is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published May 31st, 2024.
I move that the communication be ordered, received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Staff report?
Good evening, everyone. The applicant here is requesting to rezone the subject parcel from RS8 to M1 General Manufacturing District. This parcel was zoned industrial in 1998 and is currently vacant. The applicant wishes to use it for their business, truck maintenance, and parking of commercial vehicles. The current zoning district does not permit for auto-oriented uses. The proposed M1 district allows for proposed use. There is a mix of residential and manufacturing zoning districts within the vicinity, and any new use will have to comply with site development requirements, including parking and screening the new business from adjacent residences. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows future character area as traditional neighborhood high intensity and envisions the development of area or parcel for multifamily and small-scale office and commercial uses. Since the parcel is in close proximity to other manufacturing uses and was not platted to be one of the residential uses, the proposed zoning district would make the parcel available for other non-residential uses permitted under M1 district. So the proposed rezoning and its uses will complement surrounding area and bring a new use to the vacant parcel. Warder Street is classified as 60-foot wide secondary arterial public right-of-way by Clark County Thoroughfare Plan. Access to the proposed district will be from Warder Street. There are no city service easements across the parcel on record. There is an alley near the west lot line which was vacated in 1992. It will be the owner's or developer's responsibility to locate any easements prior to construction. Written reports from city staff state no objection, recommend approval. City Planning and Zoning Division commented that the parcel is surrounded by a mix of manufacturing and residential district. The rail line to the east side of parcel makes the parcel fit for non-residential uses. Any structures, including fences, will have to comply with yard area and setback requirements. So the overall staff recommendation is approval of applicant's request, and the request was recommended approval by the City Planning Board as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop? Tracy?
Were there any objections up to tonight?
There were none.
Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Is there any comments from the audience concerning this hearing? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn this hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes?
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. The hearing scheduled for 6:55 is called to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Mrs. Houston?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mr. Brown? Mrs. Brown?
I was going to say he's still at work.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Has proper legal notice been given in this hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for .68 acre located at 521 West Grand Avenue from RS8 Medium Density Single Family Residence District to G Green Space Park and School District was published in the Springfield News-Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached hereto is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on May 31, 2024.
I move that the communication be ordered received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes?
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Staff report?
The applicant or city is requesting to rezone the subject parcel to provide community opportunities for public recreation and outdoor sports. The parcels were platted for single-family homes in the past and were part of subdivision plat and are now along the bike trail. The city, in partnership with various community organizations and Legacy 24 neighborhood influencers, wish to rezone it to provide a space for social interaction, enhance neighborhood engagement, and overall provide better quality of life for surrounding neighborhood residents. The proposal is to have a pickleball court with opportunities to increase access to more recreational activities. The current RS8 zoning district permits for single-family oriented uses and allows for a community center. However, the proposed use leans towards a more outdoor recreational and neighborhood engagement area and does not fit within the intent of RS8 zoning district. The proposed green space park and school district meets the intent of proposed use, which is to provide and maintain lands for open space and essential public services. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows character area as traditional neighborhood high intensity, supports the use to be residential in character. The surrounding districts are residential in nature, and with the bike trail along west of parcel, the proposed use of parcel for public recreation fits and aligns with the general neighborhood character. West Grand Avenue is classified as 60-foot wide public 60-foot wide collector public right-of-way by Clark County Thoroughfare Plan. Access to proposed use will be from West Grand Avenue. The parcel has a north-south alley, which was vacated in 1944, and another east-west alley, which was vacated in 2018. Any easement rights from utility companies will be reserved. There is a sewer line within the vacated east-west alley, and any proposed structures will need to comply with easement requirements. Any new structures, sheds, or fences will have to comply with yard and area requirements. Written reports from city staff. City Service Department has commented that there is a city sewer present in vacated alley. Permanent structures cannot be constructed over this. City Planning and Zoning Division commented that there are no dimensional requirements or special provisions for the proposed green space park and school district. However, any use proposed should follow general code requirements of having minimum of 5 feet setback for all structures. It will also have to comply with screening measures to screen users from surrounding residences. The overall staff recommendation is approval of the request. And the City Planning Board has recommended approval of the request as well. Thank you.
Thank you. My question is does it have to be a pickleball court, or can it be something maybe what the neighborhood would enjoy? Like, could it be a basketball court?
This plan was created taking neighbors' input,
Alright.
community input, neighbors' input, and also led by City Neighborhood Impact Division and the influencers team as well. So they came
Okay.
up with this plan.
Thank you. Other commissioners?
Were there any complaints or concerns raised up to tonight?
At the city planning board meeting, there were 2 people in support of this rezoning, and there was one question from a lady present, but it was a question about the use. No objections or concerns.
No, in terms of comment, I'm pleased to see that we're pursuing this because this is one of the things we consistently heard from a lot of neighborhood across Springfield is the need for smaller pocket park and more recreational opportunity for everyone. So I'm pleased to see this coming before.
Any other comments from commissioners? Comments from the audience on this hearing only? If you'd like to go to the mic, please, Gary.
Armstrong, when you're talking about these parks or that court, are these concrete plans somebody wants to achieve, or are these just ideas? I'm thinking, who's going to put it up? Who's funding putting it up, and who maintains paying for it, paying for the maintenance of it? Because pocket parks in the south end, where money's a little less than north of McBride, who's going to pay? Where's it coming from? Those are just things I'm thinking of. You got to pay for it. I've seen things started, then they go kind of nice, then they turn into crap, and then they're just sitting there. Another problem. So if it's implemented right, all those things are looking. Sounds?
Thank you. Do you have any answers to those questions today?
Aaron from Neighborhood Impact Division will want to answer this question.
Aaron?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you all too. You look beautiful. Commissioners, to the question, we do have funds allocated within our Neighborhood Impact Division and our CDBG that we have set aside for this project. We also have Community Foundation that's also committing to this project as well. So the funds will be coming from mixture of Neighborhood Impact Division and Community Foundation and organizations to support this project. As far as maintenance and upkeep, we talked to Leanne and National Trails, our Legacy 24 influencers, and other organizations that's going to help upkeep this property until we come up with something.
Thank you.
And I will say to Mayor Ruth's question, there is a basketball court already down the street from there that Conscious Connect has. So that's why the pickleball court came up, to kind of give more option and more range for recreational.
I just know there's been a pickleball craze, so I want to make sure we're just not shoving pickleball courts where people don't want them. Okay,
No,
that's
man.
all I'm asking.
We can go play during lunch.
Yeah, and car washes. Okay. Is there any comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll. Oh, wait, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. Okay. The formal meeting of the City Commission is called to order. Clerk, call the roll. Okay.
Musical chairs. Okay. Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Dr. Estrom,
Here.
Mrs. Houston,
Here.
Mrs. Tackett. Here. Mr. Rue.
Here. Stand for the invocation and the pledge, please. Father, I just come before you and I ask that you would help us make decisions that will help advance our city, that we would make decisions in your name. So before we continue on with the agenda, I'd like to talk about an agenda change that will be starting in the next meeting. When you look at our commission agenda, we call it order, roll call, invocation, approval of minutes. After we approve the minutes before first readings in the next agenda, there'll be a time for public comment. And this is where we'll be moving public comment from the end of the meeting to the beginning of the meeting. We're doing this to let the community know that public comments are a priority. We want to give energy to it. We want to hear from people who are wanting to come here. We understand that people that come and want to provide comment really don't have anything, they may not have any comment about what we're going to be discussing with the business of the city. Some do. But so we're going to start with public comments in the meeting, starting the next meeting. Well, there'll be a grace period because I know there's people that are used to coming in halfway through the business meeting and then making public comment towards the end. So we'll have a grace period throughout August, and then in September, this is when we'll accept public comments at our meetings. We'll just be in the beginning. Okay, so just want to go ahead and make that. I've asked the newspaper to go ahead and kind of record that and put that in an article that explains to the public as well. Okay, is there approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Clerk, proceed with first readings by title only.
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 0.90 acre at 1103 Water Street, Springfield, Ohio, from RS8 Medium Density Single Family Residence District to M1 General Manufacturing District. Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 0.68 acre at 521 West Grand Avenue, Springfield, Ohio, from RS8 Medium Density Single Family Residence District to G Green Space Park and School District. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a community housing development organization agreement, Home Chodo, with Neighborhood Housing Partnership of Greater Springfield Incorporated in connection with the general operation of affordable housing development activities for an amount not to exceed $28,460, and confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from July 1, 2024 to the passage of this ordinance. Amending ordinance number 9190 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing and replacing a section of Chapter 185 entitled Fringe Benefits. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a development incentive agreement, non-residential development, with Hilton Capital Group, LLC, to provide for sewer services to real property outside the city limits. Authorizing the acceptance of various donations in the amount of $10,000 or more to support the Legacy 24 initiative and Legacy Club activities presented in the Springfield City Schools. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Greer Industries Incorporated, doing business as Greer Lime Company, for the purchase of quick lime for a period of 1 year with an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $1,612,300 for the initial 1-year period.
Is there any comments from commissioners on first readings only? Dr. Estrop?
Yes, item 186-24. Tom, that's not the Hilton Group. We're not having a Hilton hotel built here.
There was a question was asked during senior staff. No, it's not the Hilton Property Group that's going to be a hotel. So this is just a transfer of ownership of an existing DIA. This is 2400 Mechanicsburg Road. That's Route 4, just north of Home Road. Some of you might know that's where Mick Restaurant was and a power equipment store there. So no change there. It's just a change of ownership.
Okay. And I thought we'd want to thank various donors for their donation to the Legacy 24 initiative.
Absolutely.
I definitely wanted to speak up on that. I'm so proud of Legacy 24 and loved seeing it in our school buildings this year and cannot wait to see what happens next. So thank you, Mr. Clark. And where's my girl? She's not here this evening. I appreciate her as well. Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Tracy?
Aaron, do you mind coming and sharing with the audience what Legacy 24 is and what we're doing in the schools exactly for people that aren't familiar with this?
So Legacy 24 is a neighborhood initiative from our Neighborhood Impact Division just to empower and engage neighbors to enhance neighborhoods. In doing that, we didn't want to exclude the youth. So we create legacy clubs where we partner with schools to work with a group of students to help create community or neighborhood projects. This past year, we were in 6 schools: Fulton, Laganda, Schaefer, Hayward, Springfield High, School of Innovation. All of them created projects, whether it's around engagement, beautification, or safety, and then we work with them to help implement that project. If you follow our Facebook page, you can see their projects, and some of them are completed, some of them are still in process. So we're just looking forward to this upcoming school year and engage with new schools to see what these students come up with in their neighborhoods.
Do you have any schools in mind? Because I have several that I'd like to discuss with you. Thank you so much.
We can
No need
discuss,
to, we'll talk about that offline.
but we could discuss offline.
Love that we're engaging the youth as a succession plan, right? As we're
Yes.
developing all these projects, who, like Gary said, who's going to take care of them? So I really appreciate you guys being thoughtful in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there any comments from the audience on first readings? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and go into second readings.
Vacating the first alley west of Tibbetts Avenue from East Euclid Avenue north to the first intersecting alley.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. The comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Expanding and amending the designated outdoor refreshment area and establishing requirements to ensure public health and safety within such area.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from commissioners? Just to highlight, area will now cover the Veterans Park, the Arts Center area as well. Bobby, is there anything else in that area, within that district we just want to make mention again?
Yes, Commissioners. So that will expand the northern boundary from Station 1 to the area you described per request from the Museum of Art. And then in discussions with the other DORA establishments, we learned of some programming over the weekends that started before the time, so we will make the time 9 a.m.
Okay, so it also starts at 9 a.m. Dr. Estrop?
Yes, and Bobby, as I recall, the request to enlarge the door area, as you mentioned, came from the Art Museum and from the Art Council or Veterans Park.
Correct, sir. We received a request from the Museum of Art and had discussions with Parks District about expanding to those 2 areas.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll just say I think this is a great idea, especially driving more people up to the art museum after their extensive renovation. So, thank you, Bobby.
Just one more comment. This morning I was in a downtown business owner meeting and Patrick came from the Art Museum and they have some really good energy towards this. They're really excited to be a part of the DORA district and provide more opportunities for growth in that area. So good job on this. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Comments from the audience on this? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement with Fem Yogipreneur LLC for the sale of certain real property located at 1841 Clifton Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement with the Hen and Chick Company for the sale of certain real property located at 1401, 1411 Selma Road.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
This is not an agricultural operation. even though it's called Hens and Chicks. Would you remind us again what kind of operation this is? And it's the old firehouse, right, on Selma Road?
That's correct, Commissioner Estrop. Bobby Bruno managed this piece too, so I'll let him speak to it.
Sir. So the Hen and Chicks Co. is a company that stages homes that are for sale or for lease to make them look marketable. So they'll be using the old fire station to store box truck and furniture and home items.
I would just add one thing. I think that's Bobby's, maybe his last item that he might speak to. But so Bobby Bruno took a job in Cleveland, Ohio. This is his last meeting as our economic development manager. So I just want to take a minute to thank him for his service to the city. He's certainly made some inroads and done a lot of good things for us.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you for sharing that recognition. Oh, I'm sorry. I definitely enjoyed working with you, Bobby, and thank you for welcoming me in when I first came on board. You were a big part of that, so you will definitely be missed.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner.
Denied, you're not allowed to leave.
Right. Jesus.
Okay. Is there any other comments from the audience? Okay, clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 2 to the lease with Alligator Air LLC, now known as PLA Real Estate Holdings LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Comments from commissioners? It's my understanding this is nothing but a name change. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a development incentive agreement, single-family residential development with Northridge United Methodist Church to provide for water services to real property outside the city limits.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. This is basically water and sewer connection to this property in Northridge. Are there any comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Southern Ionics Incorporated for the purchase of liquid sodium bisulfite for use by the city's wastewater treatment plant for a period of 1 year with an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $71,600 for the initial 1-year period.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Chris, could you go and tell us, we bought this 3 years ago, how much would it cost compared to now? In
I
that
sure
time frame.
can. So tonight, what you're approving is for $1.79 per gallon. And in 2023, it was $1.23 per gallon. So it's went up just over 50 cents a gallon.
Like a lot of other things that you have to
Yes,
purchase, right?
yes.
This isn't one of the most substantial, but we see increase in about everything we're buying today compared to then, so thanks. Other comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming purchases and the obtaining of services for the city and providing for payments therefor and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. There are comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for a roofing project at the Springfield Service Center with Duralast for an amount not to exceed $183,208.93 through the TIP Purchasing Cooperative in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 1 to the Clark County City of Springfield Geographical Information System 2021-2025 consortium agreement with the Board of County Commissioners, Clark County, Ohio, and the Clark County Auditor for the shared geographical information system to increase the agreement in an amount not to exceed $43,876 for a total amount not to exceed $263,876 for the 5-year term and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I was wondering if Tom or somebody could share with us what we're doing here and why the increase. Chris.
So the agreement that's being amended is an agreement we have with the Clark County Auditor's Office. They provide the backbone GIS mapping services that we use to track all of our infrastructure. What this amendment is doing is allowing us to get some new licenses. So as we roll out the mobile features where the field crews can go out and when they complete a job, they hit the button, it's on the map, it's recorded. That is what this does. It gives the field crews the mobile capabilities to track all the work orders as they work on our infrastructure.
I assume this will save money in the long run. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely save money, improve customer service. It will keep us from handing someone a piece of paper to go do something.
Excellent. Any other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving the acceptance of the material terms of the Kroger settlement agreement pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding regarding the pursuit and use of potential opioid litigation settlement funds and consistent with the material terms of the March 22, 2024 Kroger settlement agreement available at nationalopioidsettlement.com and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I was wondering if the law director would speak to this, the overall scope of it, and then what benefit will come into the city of Springfield and Clark County.
Yes, Mayor. So some time ago, we joined the One Ohio MOU, or the Memorandum of Understanding from Opioid Abatement Strategies. As part of that settlement, Kroger has agreed as one of the regional pharmacies to settle on a national level and then also with the state of Ohio. And then the city will get an allocation based on a formula for how we have been impacted by opioids.
The amount allocation, what are they usually?
So
in something like
101
this?
million is going to Ohio. 30% of that goes to local governments. Our portion is 0.47. So our amount is about 143,000 or 143,000, but it's over 11 years. Correct.
And what are our plans to do with that, with those funds? Do we have anything?
So those funds have to be used for opioid abatement.
Got you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
So I was wondering, Mrs. Allen, did the recent rejection by the courts of a large opioid settlement with a major drug company, does that have any implication for this particular settlement?
For this particular settlement, it does not have any. This is one of the regional pharmacies, so there's still more pharmacies that have not settled yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
And that's the end of our agenda
Okay.
item.
No new items on the agenda. I don't believe we have committee reports tonight. Is there comments from commissioners?
I do have a comment. And I want to, Mr. Mark, do you mind if I share our conversation from last meeting? Okay, thank you. So after last week's meeting, our last meeting that we had, I took a moment to speak with Mr. Mark Sanders, and through that conversation, I believe that we were able to gain some understanding, and so I wanted to be able to reflect that conversation to everyone here in hopes that we can all do the same thing. So I was speaking with Mark, and he had shared that certain times he can feel as if someone brings up racism or race, that it is being done in an attempt to silence him or silence people, right? And I said, okay, I understand that piece. I then went on to share with him that I cannot continue as a black person to sit and hear things that are obviously things that can be construed as racist statements, right? So I just wanted to move forward with saying that anything that I bring up about race, it is certainly not to silence anyone. That is literally what my goal is to hear from every single person. But my goal is also to raise the vibration at our meetings so that we can be positive and move forward with problem solving on how to move forward with any situation. So anytime that I am bringing that up or asking someone to change their language, it is truly so that you can be heard, so that we can understand you, and that we are speaking in a way that moves us forward in a positive manner to be able to address any concerns that any citizen has within our city. So I wanted to take the time to thank you, Mr. Mark, for having that conversation with me and being able to help me understand what that can do to others. So I thank you so much for your time and your commitment to the city and everything that you bring forward. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Just want to share a great event happening in our community, National Night Out. It's going to be Tuesday, August 6th, 5 to 8 p.m. in Veterans Park. This is a free community event that the police and first responders put on. There's tons of bicycles donated by businesses. They welcome businesses to set up and participate. And the information can be found on the city's social media page. And I believe the police department's social media page has it right now. Thanks.
Chief, could you just call the police and have that guy, please? Are you serious? Gosh. Sorry, Tracy. National Night Out. You don't know what we're seeing. We're seeing 4 or 5 guys in one motorcycle just go straight across the screen. So anyway. Hey, Tracy, did I interrupt? Do you want to repeat anything?
No, I think I got it all.
Okay.
Come to National Night Out.
National Night Out. It's a great event. Thank you. I'm going to invite Mark Sanders to go to the podium first.
Perfect. I had nothing to do with that either, Mr. Mark.
Oh, I did. I figured you engaged him. We'll just go ahead and let him go first. Oh, that's fine.
Mark Sanders, Springfield, Ohio, Snyder-Doma Road. Thank you so much for that little plug. I appreciate that. It was a very good conversation, and hopefully it built some bridges. So
Absolutely, it absolutely did. Thank you.
So again, tonight, just real quick, and I probably won't even use my whole 3 minutes, but continuing on the people that are being housed in unsafe and unsanitary conditions, I think the one property you probably should look at would be 1216 and 1218 North Lime. I think those folks are kind of being taken advantage of, so maybe make sure they're not being kept in a unsafe sanitary conditions.
Can you repeat the address?
Got it.
1216 and 1218. One of the things, I'm going to step out a little bit, but I contacted from somebody, and I know last meeting there was a presentation of next year's budget, and it showed a shortfall. You guys are using theoretical numbers from income and everything else. I got a call, and I realize everybody has to be competitive in the market, but I understand there was an 18% raise given in February to some city employees. Just want to kind of question that, the transparency of that. Also, too, city vehicles being driven home by people that live as far south as James. A lot of wear and tear and mileage. So I would encourage the city to kind of look at the nickels and dimes, because they make dollars pretty quick. So again, if you would look into that, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to
Thank
step
you.
away. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Nettie Carter and Wendy Doolittle.
Good evening, everybody. Again, Nettie Carter Smith. I actually don't live here, but I work here and I'm a native here. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to talk a little bit about Shelter Inc. and just share just some information. Some may have heard it before, maybe not. But if you have, bear with me. Our community, we really must prepare to address the humanitarian crisis, historic levels to address the homeless housing crisis in our community. It continues to grow. Next steps in local collaboration are critical to the future of our community. That is huge. Springfield, Clark County has been known for collaboration. Shelter Inc. has been one of the rocks and really a route to help with collaboration. I am fortunate to work for Rocking Horse Community Health Center. I was a board member in 2013, Mulberry Terrace, which is a housing establishment for our most vulnerable population, was birthed through Shelter Inc. And also through Elena's vision. Rocking Horse and Shelter Inc. are partners in this venture. It really is concerning to us. We need to make sure that we continue to serve this vulnerable population. And clearly, our service at Mulberry Terrace is critical. The effects of homelessness has an health, safety, social, economic, and environment impacts to our community. It affects our schools, our healthcare systems, which I just spoke about with Rocking Horse, and other social agencies. We heard these stats earlier, but I knew this and I wanted just to repeat this publicly. Shelter has provided over 4,700 individuals with shelter from 2020 during the pandemic to the current date. They prevented 510 households from accessing shelter, providing rental assistance, and they've helped 597 households to exit shelters. They provided deposits, rentals, and utility assistance. Without having Shelter Inc., it will make a huge impact in our community. And I will share, again, I understand that we have another agency from Montgomery County that has stepped in, but not being from this community and understanding what we're about makes a huge impact. It impacts us greatly. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Elena Bradley publicly for all of her service, everything that she has poured into this community. She has, I mean, honestly, I wish her well. She's leaving our community, which, full transparency, it really hurts me because she is a root in the community. She's already accepted a job, and I think it speaks volumes that she is here still fighting for our homeless population. It speaks volumes. We will miss her. We will miss her leadership. We will miss her passion. We will miss everything that she has sown into our community.
Thank you so much. Wendy?
Good evening. Hi, my name is Wendy Doolittle. I'm the CEO of McKinley Hall. And I too want to thank Elena Bradley and Charlie Bush for sharing their work plan with us this evening. I am concerned because I work with, when I hear all the ARPA dollars and the opioid prices, that's the population I work with. And that's a lot of our homeless population. So before I came over tonight, I just looked at what our daily census was. And there's 50 individuals right now that we serve at McKinley Hall that are homeless. Some may be at the shelter, some may be couch surfing, some may be under a bridge, some may be in their cars. But there's 50 right now. And I guess my biggest concern is, you know, while we did pull in an agency from out of town, they're only serving families. And I just don't understand, what is our plan? How are we going to move forward if we don't have this service for individuals? So, Tent City wasn't that long ago, and Tent City was in the city. And it's like we have to come up with a solution. Elena shared that the money is gone in September. We're moving into winter months, and what are we going to do? And while a chunk of it may look like it's with the county, I think when the city did remove the 1.3 million, it did cause further harm. But we can't wait on the county to figure out all of this, obviously, because
Wendy, if I can interrupt for a point of clarity, we did not remove $1.3 million.
I'm just thinking of the work plan.
I understand, but we did not remove, things get reported or misconstrued. None of our hearts up here are to ignore the homelessness. We care about the displaced community, and we want to help and do something about it. We think Sheltered Inc. is valued. We want to make sure it succeeds. We do what we can as commissioners, all we can. So
I appreciate
I'm not
that.
trying to take your time, but I just want to make sure the facts are the facts. We did not take $1.3 million away from Sheltered.
Okay, I agree with Elena. We need to go back and look at the work plan and see what the commissioners originally agreed to. Even if it never moved forward, it's been placed elsewhere, and our individuals are going to be the ones that suffer. So I'm just here to ask that you take a look at that and come up with a plan, because Homeful is not the plan for individuals, it's for families, and only 35 families. And I have 50 individuals right now that are homeless that I'm concerned about when September comes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Calabrese?
I don't want this to count on my 3 minutes, but I've been watching you guys on TV for the last 2 weeks.
All your 3 minutes.
And you're a more handsome group in public than you are. So maybe you need to get some new lenses. So I just want to reiterate a few things that you've already heard. And I'm tickled to death what you just said, Mayor, that you are in full support of the continuance of this 30-year nonprofit agency. I've been around Springfield when Craig House, none of you were here except for Tom Franzen. You were, but you don't remember it. But the Craig House, when it closed, and what a devastating impact that had on a community. OIC, why is OIC interested? OIC just spent $625,000 in the last 6 months housing people at Shelter Inc. Those funds are coming to an end at the end of October. We spent $7.5 million in 38 months on rental assistance. That's a huge amount of money. And we are rated the 6th highest eviction rate county in the state of Ohio. I think it's only going to get worse because of the amount of out-of-town LLCs that are coming in. And I would like to encourage you as a body to consider surcharges to place on out-of-town, non-owner occupied units to help with the city budget, the management and the inspection and the safety of these buildings. So thank you. And again, I'm tickled to death. And I will say this, I want to go forward by saying I've had meetings with the city manager, and I think that he also is in the mindset of we can't fix what was broke. That's behind us. Let's look forward, and how do we stabilize our hometown shelter?
I don't think, Mike, I could have said it, or anybody could have said any different what you just said right there. And that's the fact. We can't fix what's been broken or what may be different, but we want to move forward as well. Okay? Thank you. Meredith Avery? I see. Right, Meredith? Thank you. I got you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Meredith Avery, and I work downtown Springfield, 125 West Main, at the United Senior Services. The homeless situation with this shelter shutting down has really created most difficult problems for our seniors because they're older. They're always on the lookout for a scam. People are afraid. I've got panhandling in the lot. They want to come in, they want to eat, they want to take showers. If you're not a member, you don't get to use our facilities. You have to be 55. A lot of these people are younger. There is some that are of age that have purchased a membership. They will buy a membership one day, come in the next day with their friend, want their friend to go downstairs and take a shower. Well, we have a guest policy. You can bring a guest once a year. But I mean, this is constant. They're staying at the corner church on the corner of Wittenberg and High Street. There's a little alcove there. I've talked closely with a lady that runs the church. She's the parish secretary in Adele. And I mean, she comes over, she talks to me, what can we do? Some we've tried to get transferred out with the VA. But it's really causing hardship for us not having somewhere where these people can go. And, you know, you have compassion. I have a lady come in, want to take a shower. I can't allow that. No, she doesn't have a membership. She's not old enough to be a member. So when I turn my head, they sneak in. We're just unable to service all. We don't mind helping out where we can with the, you know, the ones that we can. We've got social workers there. We have meal assistants. We have utility assistants. We just need somewhere where they can go and lay their heads. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I'll ask Clerk Shawnee, Superintendent Brian Kuhn to go to the mic, please.
Good evening, Brian Kuhn, Superintendent Clark Shawnee Local School District. Thank you for allowing me to speak to the Commission this evening. My purpose here tonight is to go on the record to clarify comments made during the last Commission meeting. Essentially, I'm here pulling a Paul Harvey and providing the rest of the story. During the last Commission meeting, Commissioner Estrop stated that the Clark Shawnee Local School District, quote, won't starve to death, end quote. This claim was being made because Dr. Estrop said we left $21 million on the table and would have collected $83 million on the Melody Parks project. It is noteworthy that during a November Commission meeting in 2023, that Dr. Estrop, citing the same project, quoted the figures of $7 to $8 million left on the table and that we stood to collect $63 million. I'm not sure how the numbers have increased dramatically since then. Let's assume that Dr. Estrop's figures from the last meeting are accurate. The district stood to gain $83 million from the Melody Parks development, but we declined the deal. While $83 million sounds like a lot of money, here's the critical context that was not shared during the last Commission meeting. So follow me with the math. Per the developer's plans, there are to be 1,249 housing units in Melody Parks. Using conservative estimates from the field, we've been advised to plan on 0.6 students per housing unit, which would equate to a total of 749 students for Melody Parks. Per the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, the DO, the cost to educate a student in the Clark Shawnee local is $10,259 per year. That means the annual cost to educate 749 students for Melody Parks is $7,683,730. Our cost to educate those 749 students over the same 30-year time period referenced by Dr. Estrop during the last meeting would be $230,519,730. $519,730. This total is based on today's costs and does not consider any inflation or cost increases. Now, of the $10,259 it costs to educate each student each year, the state contributes $2,892 to us. The balance of that is made up by local taxes. That means if we would have accepted the deal referenced by Dr. Estrop, we may have received $83 million over 30 years, but we have been short $82.5 million over those same 30 years. Translation, the deal you said was good for us would only have funded half the cost to educate these students. How's that a good deal? Additionally, this is only the cost to educate and transport students. It does not include any facility or infrastructure needs we would have to accommodate increased enrollment due to development. The position of the district has remained the same since the beginning of this discussion. Clark-Shawnee Local supports development, but not when the development negatively impacts the community it's designed to serve. I'm a teacher, so I brought a prop, pizza, all right? If this pizza represents all the tax dollars that we're entitled to, and you offer us a slice and call it an incentive, well, that slice doesn't feed the family. The commission can blame the state of Ohio and its lack of an adequate and fully funded school funding model. And as Mayor Rue has said, it's not a problem of the commission, it's outside the control of the commission. We would ask the same logic be applied to the question we've asked before regarding the reasons that these infrastructure costs cannot be rolled into the cost of the homes. The response we get is that then the homes would be unaffordable in this market. So I would offer that that's not a problem of my school district. Why should we bear the burden of the housing market that's outside our control? In summary, I'm here tonight simply to go on the record with the other side of the equation. I do not believe that the Clark-Shawnee Local School District receiving a fraction of the voted upon property taxes we are otherwise due should ever be referred to as an incentive. I have two questions for the commission tonight. One is to confirm whether or not the city of Springfield will be receiving all the income tax it is due for Melody Parks, Sycamore Ridge, and/or Maple Grove. And two, in an April 23, 2024 News Sun article, a TIF was approved for downtown development, and Dr. Estrop is reported to have praised the proposal for ensuring school tax dollars remain intact. Why is Clark-Shawnee not worthy of similar consideration whereby our school dollars would remain intact? Thank you.
May I respond? I stand by my statements, and you confirmed those numbers when I initially presented them, Brian. So now you're walking away from the very numbers that I spoke publicly in April, I believe, and you confirmed those numbers. You absolutely sat right over there and went to the mic and said, I confirm Dr. Estrop's numbers. So now the dance is, I've got to back away from that confirmation. I stand by my numbers. I believe you walked away from significant dollars left on the table. And to this day, I don't know why. Why did you walk away from millions of dollars that could have flowed to the Shawnee School District? Why did you choose to walk away from millions of dollars that could have flowed into your district?
May I respond, Mayor?
Yeah,
Thank you. We walked away we refused to accept that deal because yes, those monies would have flowed to us, but we were due so much more in our voted upon tax rate. More was due to us than that would have been. So again, my question, do you guys will you receive all the income tax from that development that you're due? Is there any diversion of your income tax?
I'm trying to go off the top of my head. No, I don't believe there is. Where there's a new community authority, there'll be an additional tax, but no, we'll receive the full income tax.
So you'll
What we
receive
do is we
your full-
incentivize most often, as you know, we incentivize on the commercial and industrial development that feeds the property tax as well. But so no, we don't offer income tax abatement on residential.
So you'll receive 100% of your income tax resources by your choosing, and by your choosing, you're taking in Melody Parks 100% of the taxes for each resident for 15 years.
You want to answer?
The other thing I want to point out is all these kids don't show up day one. No, they don't.
Please.
The houses get built over time. We've seen that, and that will be the situation here. So the overcrowding you're alluding to will be slow, unless the housing development just goes wild. But again, I ask you, you've confirmed the numbers that I presented, and you left millions on the table. Why did you do that? You knew when you said no to the offer and accepted an offer for less money. I'm left to ask why. Why did you accept a deal for less money when you could have had more money?
Dr. Estrop, with all due respect, why would you force us as a commission to accept a deal that is less than what we are otherwise entitled to? And how do you keep calling it a deal? We were entitled to all the property tax revenue that has been voted upon millage-wise that is supposed to come to our school district. Clark Shawnee is entitled to that, just like Springfield City Schools entitled to theirs, Northeastern is entitled to theirs. Why would you make us have to take a deal for less than what we're otherwise due?
Brian, the law provides for the very thing that you are lobbying against. The law of the state of Ohio provides for the very thing you're lobbying against. What Mayor Rue has said on several occasions. And I agree. The school funding mechanism needs to be changed. But we can't do that. We don't have the authority to do it. And if we want homes in this community, and I keep hearing over and over and over that we need more housing, we need more homes, then we have to play the game that allows for developers to come into our community and build more housing, whether it's in the city or outside. I mean, that's the way it works in this state and in most states.
So Dr.
Thank
Estrop,
you.
thanks for your comments. Brian, one more comment?
Sure. You brought up slow development. Yes, we know that houses will come online slowly. I can't upscale a school building. I don't build one classroom at a time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if I have kids move in, like you said last meeting, that's spread out among all grade levels, right? I can't build one classroom every time I get 25 kids. You know that's not how school buildings work. But yes, that is the game, and by you guys playing the game, we lose. Thank you.
So, thank you. I have, when I make comments about this, my position is we cannot afford to keep growth from happening in our community when there's an opportunity. I've been trying to do as much as possible to represent and care about the district and get as much funds that are available to the district. So I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth because honestly, you're an expert on this. Dave has more experience on how the schools are funded. So, but I just want you to know, we have tried to make sure that you would get the best opportunity. I know deal's been thrown around here, but the opportunity, like any other school system in the state of Ohio, when growth comes to an area, other school systems have to deal with the same thing. And so we're not unique. I don't think Springfield's cut a unique deal with any developer in our area. So I want to be able to say that openly. Is there anything new you want to add,
So,
Brian?
like, one question, with add-on, you're right, other school districts in Ohio, some have to face this, but if you look at that Huber Heights deal right now, they're holding the school harmless. Beaver Creek has developments coming. They're not, they're holding the school district harmless. So how can they do it in markets not far from here with similar, but we can't? I don't understand. But they're holding their schools harmless in at least those two deals. I've talked to the Beaver Creek superintendent, and the other one was in the newspaper.
I'm just going to say, obviously, all markets are different, right? And then if you go back to when they first started offering incentives, we're late to the game compared to adding housing like some of our neighboring communities. So I think the idea here is we're incentivizing to attract this development, and over time, we'll be able to draw back some of those incentives. We won't need as much incentives to get industry here or to get people living here, right? But getting things going, opening the door, creating the incentive programs has given us opportunity, right, that we have not seen in decades. So I think that's all part of it. We look at the surrounding communities, we look at the market, we look at what others are doing with incentives, and try very diligently not to give away more than we have to, right? And so that's part of it, Brian, and we're not ignorant of those other deals or how those are structured, but we certainly
I think both the developers and us were fighting for the same thing. We need that initial infrastructure. Like, they need the money to get things going, right? And if we have to build new space or lease new space or whatever it is, we need that initial, we don't have that in our coffers. And so that is, that we're fighting for the same things. It's just like we're not getting a win and the developer is.
So, and I'll go back to my statement. I think I'll conclude after this.
Sure.
So we'll be done after this. The state of Ohio has not put us in a tandem opportunity to develop our community. We need to say that out loud because we care about your school district. We want your school district to thrive. It's an excellent school district. And I'm just saying, but we as a commission, it would be foolish for us to deny 1,200 new houses coming in our community and deny that opportunity. So we had to look for creative ways to do that, like other communities have done that. So I don't think there's any comments more you need to make, because I know we can go back and forth.
Sure.
And I respect you, and I think you respect me, and I know that we're on the other side of the table, but we both want growth in our community, and you've said that. I know you do that. But we're doing the best we can, like you're doing the best you can with the information we have.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brian. If you don't want that pizza, I have 5 kids.
You're welcome to it.
That's all right. And I'll buy it. Okay. None. Jean Barnett. Jean, are you still here? Jean Barnett? Okay. Gary Armstrong.
Didn't have anything really to talk about. But that same subject, I've said this before, I got a lecture from it a week or two ago. That's a good old boys system of those incentives. If you can't build a house and make a profit, if you're trying to start it by selling your garage, you can't finance 20 or 50 houses to start up and sell them, you need to get out of the building business. You don't belong there. Become a baker. You're giving away what he said. I'm not real mathematical minded, but I followed his figures, and it makes sense. It makes common sense. Occasionally, if you have a real stinker in your city and you've got to give incentive to get somebody to do something that nobody else will do, yeah, there's room to maneuver. But just to say that you have to give this away, because if you're going to fill the schools, whether they're done overnight or 20 years, to give somebody 30-year tax break when you need it, especially for this community, that makes no sense. But going along with that, yeah, Mr. Calabrese stole my LLC. I've been saying LLCs are a problem for, a year and a half now? We need to have the ordinances effectively oversee them and stop them from doing the things they're doing that are detrimental, negative to the city, cost money.
When I heard Mike say that, Gary, I'm going to ask about it. I'll ask our law department to research what those opportunities are.
Well, and I think LLCs are involved in immigrants. People are making money on the people coming here. And I want to know this. I have nothing against the immigrants, but in this poor city, when's the end? I thought, a year ago it was 2,000 or 3,000. Now the census says 6,000. That was 2 years ago. Now I hear it's getting near 20,000. When's this stop? If we're inviting people over dinner and we only have 2 pork chops, well, you can divide it into half and serve 4 people, but you can't serve 100. When is this city going to be able to support, keep overflowing, First Diversity, bringing them in and in and in? I don't care. Just leave us the ability to serve everybody, including them, honestly, fairly, and with kindness. And you can't do that when you're poor.
I want you to know that I agree with about most everything you just said about this, which is the very reason we have tried to put this on the lips of our congressman who did speak to this in Congress the other day when they were in session. This is a concern. This is why we come. When I talk about keeping our community safe, I'm talking about that we would have the right amount of safety forces to serve everybody that is here. If we have 12 to 15 more thousand individuals that we budgeted for to protect, serve, and take care of over time, we're in trouble. This is why I'm pushing back on the federal government and try to give a voice. Say, listen, Springfield cannot handle this, and there's many other communities that can't handle this without any federal assistance. Recently, the administration just opened it up again and continued the advancement of immigrants coming in our community, in other communities. It's a concern because there's no assistance or help coming at all to help our safety forces, to keep our hospitals from burning out, to keep our safety forces from burning out. That's my concern. So when I bring up safe community, that's what I'm talking about. Okay? So I agree with what you just said. Thank you so much for your comment. Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Armstrong, you're exactly right with the LLCs. I recently read a statistic that 1 out of 5 purchases now is by an LLC for investment purposes. So I'm not sure how we can stop that, but I appreciate your comment on it. And then to further address the continuing of bringing people here, this article was in the News Sun the other day. I'm sure everyone saw it, but temporary protected status is now extended until 2026 by the federal government, not the city of Springfield, not Clark County, not the state of Ohio.
Thank you. So, you have any other? So, yeah, just trying to get my thoughts together. It's a concern for us. Okay.
I think
And this is what
this
we're talking
gentleman here, if you want to grab a card and you fill it out.
We just need you to get a card and not go to the mic. No, sir. No, sir.
You already have a
No, sir.
card?
I already have a card.
Then I'll call you up and you get all your time.
Asked a question she didn't answer, and I'd like to
Well,
answer it.
this is public comment time. We try to get to the questions, but everybody gets opportunity to get heard. Okay. Thank you. All right. Ms. Denise Williams. NAACP President. Glad to have you back.
Greetings, Commissioner, and the beautiful community of Springfield, Ohio. First, I would like to make a comment about Shelter, Inc. It is essential that we keep the shelter open. I am a mediator for housing. I get calls every week that someone is being evicted with children and they have no place to go. I am begging you, commissioners, to please, we need to keep Shelter, Inc. So that's my comment on that. My final comment is I understand there was an interesting meeting at your last meeting. And I would like to put on the table that perhaps we need a tabletop discussion on racism. What is it? What does it look like? How does it feel? What words you need to not say and what words need to be said. Our city is not that big compared to others. The relationship that the NAACP has formed with our local emergency responders, with the mayor of our city, with the commissioners up there, we can no longer sit by and be quiet. We are sick and tired of hearing all of these racial comments that has absolutely nothing to do with the planning of our city. So, I would like to propose NAACP will present Racial/Discrimination 101. And I want you guys are here, y'all are voiceful at this meeting. I want to have a tabletop meeting with everybody. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what background you have. We need to put a stop to this once and for all. So I'm back and I'm ready to do the business of our city. Be looking for more information on that, but we will be planning a racial discrimination discussion. Thank you.
We have a room on the second floor that has many tables.
I would like to
It's
say,
very large, so we could have that here in the Gothard room.
thank you so much, and that would be give me about a month and a half to get this planned.
All right. Sounds
I would love to help facilitate that with you. That would be amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Charlie Bush, are you still here?
Good evening. I spoke earlier in conjunction with Elena about shelter. I live at 1726 Thomas Drive, Springfield, Ohio. And I'll read this. I come here this evening with a saddened heart due to the recent development of the denial of funding for Shelter, Inc., which will require the closure of Shelter, still without any evidence or discussion of any wrongdoing. Yes, the city has approved funding for Shelter, formerly IHM, but also made it noted that there was a connection between this funding and the funding that is in litigation that has been denied by the Clark County Commission. At the most recent monitoring conducted by the city, there were no findings of any wrongdoing. I will read in part a response from you, Mayor. The city shares some serious concerns about Sheltered Inc.'s operation. Recent disclosures regarding the misallocation of funds, as well as the recent article in the Springfield News-Sun regarding TANF funds that had to be allocated to a qualifying organization such as Homeful and not Sheltered. So you were saying that we currently are not a qualifying agency, have raised significant concerns. It is crucial that we address these governance issues to restore trust and ensure proper management of both public and donated funds. That was from you, Mayor.
Absolutely.
Then here is the result of the request for emergency funding from the county for a remainder of 2024. Elaine and I attended a Clark County Commission meeting and formally requested funding in the amount of $350,000 to keep the doors open for the remainder of 2024 and until funding would start coming in for 2025. Below is the response from Melody Wilt in regard to this request. Mr. Bush and Ms. Bradley, the Board of County Commissioners is unable to financially or legally support this funding request. We will continue to work with approved providers to designate TANF funds as we are allowed through the Department of Job and Family Services. I'm sorry, and I do wish you all the best. In addition, in a meeting with Commissioner Wilt, Mike Calabrese, Charlie Patterson, Bo Thompson, and myself, both Charlie Patterson and Mike Calabrese stated that the training provided by the JFS in application for funding was certainly less than adequate. There were problems with the training. Here's the response from our attorney. Bullet 1. Sheltered has not been suspended or debarred from receiving federal grant funds, nor has any suspension or debarment process been initiated against Sheltered. To our knowledge, there is no legal impediment to the award of any fund. Bullet number 2. From previous conversations with the commissioners, including conversations between our respective councils, Sheltered believed that the commission was planning on providing at least some form of emergency funding.
I mean, we're beyond the 4 minutes, so thank you for comments.
I just have one more paragraph.
Okay.
Sheltered has provided service for the homeless since 1990, 34 years, and has done an outstanding job of being a working partner with the city and the county during this time. We have involved over 32 churches for volunteers and coordinators of those churches, helping with fundraisers and help provide meals at the shelter. Countless hours of dedication providing support for the less fortunate in our community, the homeless. Does all that just go by the wayside? You want to just throw away and take away the value of the hard work of the staff of Sheltered and these volunteers? Answers. We would just like to have answers. As a reputable organization, I think we deserve answers, and I think the community deserves to hear the truth. In closing, I would like to remind you that the organization that you would like to hand over the reins of providing services for the homeless in our community is the same organization that walked away from the Craig House, which provided services for homeless single men back in my tenure as director of IHM. We at that time said we were willing to step up to the task of providing services for those same homeless single men in our community. And we did, and did an outstanding job in the process. Once again, stepping up to the task. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to say again, City Commission cares about the homelessness issue. We care that Sheltered Inc. is a vibrant organization that's able to serve the homeless population. We care about that. So and we are obviously a government, and we have to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's with whatever funds we give away. as just like your organization being a nonprofit, we're responsible to make sure that those funds are handed out in the way they should be. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think there's any argument over that because that's true across the board. But we are not denying funds. We are trying to make sure we're doing the right thing with the money. And the biggest beef you have, once again, I want to say, is the county. And I wish the county would publicize their meetings like we do, because I wonder if you would be there more reading these statements.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it goes to them and not us.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'm just reading the correlation between their statements
I hear you.
and yours.
I'm not denying anything. We're a government organization. Got to make sure we have everything settled. Go ahead.
Thank you, Charlie.
Absolutely, Tracy.
As the newest city commissioner, and actually the newest commissioner in our county, it's extremely frustrating to me, especially over the hours I've spent talking to everyone, looking at the paperwork and trying to figure out what was happening with this, that the county has so much power over the city's homeless issue. The homeless people are in Springfield. And it's also unfortunate, we cannot fund it. We cannot do it. We've looked, we cannot fund it. We need those county dollars to keep that going. And again, it's just very frustrating as city commissioners where we're helpless in this, but the homeless are right out here.
That's a good point. And we looked into that when you brought that, which was very good. This is something that's throughout the state. This is state legislation that requires that the county would administer these TANF funds. So we're not doing this. We're just stating the facts because there's been so much thrown out. The city cares about homelessness, and we'd like to see shelter continue. We'd like to see them thrive. It's true, Elena. Diana Daniels.
Good evening, Diana Daniels, 40 Hedgley Road, Springfield, Ohio. When I use the pronoun you or your, I am making reference to the current occupants of the seats on the dais and the former occupants of those seats going back at least 10 years. I present to you the parable of the burning house elaborated and adjusted for our situation. You've occupied the top floor of a very nice home and it is on fire. How did it get on fire? Well, not long ago, 10 years perhaps, a small ember caused a small fire to smolder in the basement of your home. Your neighbors grew concerned about the smell. You noticed the odor at times, but living on the top floor, you ignored it and the concerns of your neighbors. Over the course of several years of smoldering, access to fuel provided for that smoldering ember to grow in the basement and fill the basement with smoke and flames. Your neighbors raised the alarm, banging on your door. Though you heard the banging and smelled the smoke, living on the top floor, you chose to ignore it. The smoking fire grew quickly, consuming all floors, and the heat and flame finally reaching the top floor. The embers from the fire caught other structures aflame, damaging property, affecting lives. You took note of the intense heat and made moves to escape from the top floor of your house, but it was too late. All of the exits are blocked by flames. You attempt to squelch the flames with nothing, but all you have left is a bucket with a hole in it. The flames could have been fought and could have been brought under control. Oh boy, that bothers me. But you chose to ignore the signs and carried on because you live on the top floor. What are the other houses consumed, the property damaged, and the lives forever changed or lost? Collateral from the top floor is nothing more than collateral damage from the top floor of your house. You chose to ignore. It is the cost of business, the price of progress. Your house is on fire, and you have only yourselves and your predecessors to blame.
Thank you. Aurora?
Hi there, good evening. I think I'm last for the evening. You'll be glad about that. I was looking online the other day for the statistics that are listed usually with the FBI, FBI.gov, by cities, and I looked up Springfield. The information was sadly missing. And then, shortly after that, on June 24th, I happened to see an article in Breitbart about how there are over 6,000 precincts, they call it precincts across America, that have not reported their information, their crime statistics to the FBI. I understand that at one point, we're talking about 21, 22, they go in 2-year increments, nothing available for the city of Springfield. I'd like to ask, because at that time on the FBI.gov website, it said that some police departments may be using another system. I'd like to know what that system is, if it's being used. And then in the Breitbart article in June, it also said that the FBI, because of this problem, was opening up reporting for those 2 years so that the 6,000 that have not reported can report. I'd like to have information about that, where we can have those statistics.
Give us 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay, our police chief doesn't know.
I'll give you 2 weeks. Will give us 2 weeks to get that information to you.
Okay, will you post that on the city
We'll
webpage?
answer your question when you come back in 2 weeks.
I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Right in the beginning, don't forget.
Hey, I know that.
That's
Happy
right.
4th of July.
Yes, you
Jill, especially.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. William?
On Broadway, near Bechtel. I had a bunch of questions about the task force. You had mentioned to me, and I appreciate your coming down a month ago when I spoke to mention there was this task force looking into the migrant influx situation. And I had some questions about that, but is there somebody I can ask? It's kind of like, because I don't want to spend this time now, because some things came up. One, a gentleman earlier had spoken. I'm sorry I got up and interrupted the meeting, but he had a question that didn't get answered. And it's a question I have. Back at the beginning of the school year, we were told 10,000 Haitians were in town. Last month, you told me out here on the floor, 15,000. I've heard plans for a lot more than that, and I'm wondering what you guys are planning or hearing among the stakeholders that you're working with.
I think, so we're saying 12 to 15,000 is what we're hearing.
Currently. Right?
The problem is, we're not getting, and didn't 5 years ago, get the opportunity to plan. Because we were not, and you're not, I'm just going to answer, you can have more time. We were not in control of this. We did not ask for it, for folks to come in our community. We could not stop that. So in the beginning of all this, the city was accused that we were amassing this large plan to bring individuals into our community like this, okay? So all I'm saying is, if that was our plan, we would have hired 25 police officers and 25 more firefighters if that was our plan. I'm just saying, and you're going to get to talk. So it's just, you just kind of pop this balloon again, which is fine. But if that was our plan, we would have had to do that, along with making sure that our individuals who are already living here and faithfully paying rent were not being displaced because of the greed of landlords. We would have been ahead of that, or at least tried to combat it or organize something. We did not get to do that. My beef in the beginning of this research was the fact that there was businesses that knew that this was a trend that was going to happen based on federal government regulation. And there was a pipeline of working that needed to be filled in the state of Ohio and other states where individuals, there were companies asking for jobs. Because of that, there are companies that knew they were going to make an effort to bring individuals who are crossing the border based on federal regulations, that they could do that. So I'm upset at the fact that we didn't get a chance to have an infrastructure in place if there were going to be 20,000 more people from 20 to 25. We didn't get to do that. So the most frustrating thing is we've got to spend tax dollars that were already in a flat budget that we got to vote on to try to take care of 15,000 more folks that are here and make sure that everybody has a safe environment to be in. That's the problem. So you were at about a minute of speaking when I interrupted you. You got 2 more minutes.
Okay. Well, one thing, like 10 years ago, we declared ourselves a welcoming city, which is like a sanctuary city, but we allegedly cooperate with ICE, even though we don't have a contract with ICE. So we did kind of lay the carpet.
So 10 years ago, I'll interrupt you again just because you're stating a fact. There was a resolution that the city of Springfield was a welcoming city.
Right.
So the sitting commission at the time, was saying we are resolving that we are a welcoming city. There was no legislation attached to that. The legislation part was a resolution. resolution and ordinance are two different things. The city resolved to be a welcoming city, which means I wouldn't want to live in a non-welcoming city. So the resolution was saying, we're going to welcome people here. That doesn't mean we are actively bringing immigrants to our community that can't handle the influx of folks.
Okay, well, back to the actual question, how many more, and again, it's not you guys planning it, but you are, with this task force and other sources, you're interacting with the people who have planned this, like I say, kind of.
So
how many more?
We're not interacting with them, we're investigating.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why we don't have a lot of reports on it, because investigations take painfully too long.
So you have no idea how many more is in the pipeline? None.
No, I mean, that's not the questions we're asking. We know that the borders are still open. We know there's an app that I learned at DC, an app that you can upload on your phone if you are of a nationality outside the United States and apply to cross the border. An app with no cap, an app without a cap, which means they can come right on across.
Right.
And so the reason when I say they can come right on across, what I'm saying is folks can come without much preparation for cities like ours to be able to handle it safely. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Folks are here, they want to be in America because there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of jobs. But Springfield's saturated. There is a lot of jobs. But Springfield is now saturated. We don't have the housing, we don't have the jobs necessarily that we once had. And we definitely, our school system, even though there's teachers welcoming students to try to teach the best they can, are overloaded. And the hospitals with big hearts are trying to serve the sick without the ability to have the time to do it. Same with our safety forces. Go ahead, you have another minute.
Yeah, you'd mentioned we can't fix things once they're broken. We ought to try to stop breaking things because in this situation it's still happening. Another Marxist who I listen to a lot spoke about the immigration situation. He said illegal immigration. It's Angelo Giuliano. He's a financial advisor. He's from Italy, but he works out of China. Illegal immigration benefits corporations. It puts pressure on wages. It destroys the middle class. It normalizes slave labor. It normalizes human sex and child trafficking. It contributes to the dilution of national identity. And that's all happening in this town, and it's getting worse.
So the three things that you stated, besides the very end and a couple things at the beginning, is why we have an investigative group
well, when
that is looking into the poor treatment of immigrants and the misuse of labor in our community.
But it meets secretly, and as a citizen, we have no right to know what's
So when you say secretly, it's like you're not privileged to the information. We want to make sure that the investigation is complete and that we don't ruin any investigation of anything before we're able to speak to it, okay?
So it's all legal discussion. And that I understand, you have to go behind closed doors for.
If you're being investigated for a crime, nobody's going to talk publicly about it. We're not going to ask you to speak publicly about an investigation, okay?
Right. So so the task force is strictly looking at.
The task force, it's not even a task, it's an account, I know.
It's not a task force.
But it is an accountability group that's established within city staff members under city jurisdiction to be able to look into these issues in a judicial way.
So there'll never be a report.
There will be a report.
Yeah.
But the investigation is slow.
Okay.
But there is state and federal agencies involved with this investigation. Okay?
All right. Hey, the last thing, I'm pushing it, but referring to people, I've only been paying attention since June 1st, okay? And I've seen people come up, raise concerns about public health and safety issues, availability of affordable housing, and other issues. Not one of them has been a racial issue, but they get called racist, and then you have people out here saying amen, and then we have people saying, oh, we need a racist board. This isn't, and that's part of that whole woke culture. The whole point of it is to silence people.
Actually, it's not. And please stop that timer for me, Jill, because I realize you're pointing right at me. When I hear things that have racist tones, I'm not expecting you to understand that because that's not something that you live with. That's not a part of your world. So I am trying my best to make sure that when things are said, that we address them so that we can move forward together. I'm not sure if you heard what Mr. Mark and I have just said.
I apologize.
Okay, well, maybe
good to go
rewind
back and listen to it,
and
yeah.
go back and listen to it, because my goal is to work with everyone. But what I will not continue to do is sit here as a black person in America and hear the dog whistling going on right here. I can no longer take that. I've held it in. I sat here 1 week and I cried. Those tears weren't for show. Those tears were because my heart is broken sitting here, hearing those things. And trust me, sir, it's real. So absolutely, I will have a conversation with anyone at any time. I am open. I am here to represent everyone. But at the same time, I'm asking for understanding that I am a black person sitting here, and the only black person sitting here.
Yeah. Hey,
You have 15 seconds.
okay, hey, I know your emotions are real, but I think, again, one of
My
the people...
emotions, no, it's facts, sir.
No, well, one of the people you called a racist merely said third world. And he
Crystal
just...
did not
he
call
didn't
anybody
know-
racist, okay? I think you're done. Thank you so much. You can come back in 2 weeks. In the beginning.
I will.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll. Good job.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett? Yes. Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes, thank you.